Hello, my name is Leverett Wing, and I'm the President and CEO of the Commonwealth Seminar. Welcome to our Spring 2022 Seminar Class graduation. Ordinarily, I don't record greetings for our graduation videos, but our graduation keynote speaker, Mary Lou Akai Ferguson's remarks were so powerful and incredibly timely that we thought they needed some context. Mary Lou is a political activist, organizer, and in so many ways, a trailblazer. Though she's worked on a number of campaigns, she really rose to prominence as Boston Mayor Michelle Wu's campaign manager during Michelle's historic 2021 mayoral campaign and as her first chief of staff at City Hall. Since then, she's become much sought after nationally, and we were thrilled that she agreed to be the keynote speaker for our Commonwealth Seminar Spring 2022 class graduation. As you'll see momentarily, Mary Lou offered us one of the most personal and often poignant graduation speeches ever presented in the seminar's 20 years. She offered candid perspectives and lessons on organizing, working with those with opposing views, building coalitions, and lessons which those in the press and media should take to heart. Mary Lou's speech was also incredibly timely. It took place on Wednesday, June 22nd, in the midst of a number of Supreme Court rulings which were punctuated by the historic ruling overturning Roe v. Wade. Seen in that light, Mary Lou's work and lessons offer us invaluable guidance and lessons in community organizing, mobilizing, and empowering ourselves and our communities. Her message that we all have a voice and should all be heard is one that should resonate with each and every one of us. In the end, we hope that you'll find Mary Lou's speech and the testimonials from our Spring 2022 class graduates inspiring, uplifting, and ultimately a call to action. Thank you again for joining us.
Raise a cup up for all my day ones. 2 middle fingers for the haters. Life's only getting greater. Straight up from nothing we go. Higher than the highest skyscraper. No little league we major. The proof is in the paper. We put the good in the good in the good life. We put the good in the good in the good life. We put the bad in the past, now we alright.
It's really been an awesome experience, and I've been really humbled and grateful and thankful for the candor and compassion and just the heart that everybody brings to this, and it really means a lot, and I'm very grateful that I was able to be a part of this.
After this class, I'm really feeling re-engaged and inspired and motivated. So I just want to thank you all. I'm feeling that way both because I think of all that we've learned and the tools that I've gained, and just because, seeing the passion that I've seen from all of our speakers and from you all, it's been so great to see, the different issues that you all are working on and that you care about. It's been just really, really inspirational.
Being part of a special group of, over 1,500, that means a lot to be around, and this seminar being able to uphold that. And hopefully, there's another 1,500 people that go through this, and we're looking back and praising those people.
We put the good in the good in the good life. The good life. We put the good in the good in the good life. I said the good life. We put the bad in the past, now we alright. We alright. Damn right, from the bottom we rise so high. Now we cutting skylights. We building an empire. We owe it all to each other. Just look at us right now. Destined, we so good right now. Legend. Here's to you and I, raise them to the sky. We put the good in the good in the good life. We put the good in the good in the good life. We put the bad in the past, now we alright. We put the good in the good in the good life. We put the good in the good in the good life. I said the good life. We put the bad in the past, now we alright. We alright.
And thank you for having me. Thank you for all of those very amazing adjectives. And I just do my best to try to live up to a Leverett intro always. So my name is Mary Lou Akai Ferguson. As Leverett mentioned, I use she, her pronouns. I was born in Japan, but I grew up mostly in Atlanta, Georgia. And as Leverett mentioned, I most recently was campaign manager for Mayor Michelle Wu's campaign in Boston, and her chief of staff in office for the first few months in office. And I want to give a huge shout out to Anshi. I know Leverett already did, but I see her and Gary as well on the Zoom, who were instrumental in our campaign and just amazing, amazing parts of our journey. So I actually want to rewind a little bit and talk a little bit about what got me politically activated. I know that so many of us have these very specific stories where things just click, and we realize how important it is for us to start to get activated. And you know, clearly I see all of you all have been in the seminar, so something has driven you here as well. So as I mentioned, I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. I went to DeKalb County Public Schools. DeKalb County is, the public school system is the largest school system in Georgia. And I do want to give a trigger warning before my story that I'm going to talk about suicide. So just as a heads up. So one of my best friends at the time, Alex, was one of the only other Japanese Americans that I actually knew growing up. And he had been suffering with mental illness throughout the course of our junior year of high school. And he attempted suicide one time and he did not succeed, which was good. And he was still going through a rocky period. And about 3 months later, he came up to me and a few of my other best friends and told us, you know, I'm struggling again. I'm considering this again. And so as the 17-year-old that I was, I kind of trusted in grown-ups a bit at the time. And I figured, okay, if we go to a school counselor, we'll get this sorted out, get him some help, get him on the right track. Like, you know, he really had read all the books and we just need a professional in here. We need to help him out here. So we, my friends and I pulled a meeting together with the school counselor. At the time, half of our building was in trailers just slapped onto the baseball field. And so I remember very vividly being squished into her little trailer and explaining the situation. You know, we felt like we were breaking Alex's trust by even talking to her, but felt that this was important enough to do so. And she heard us out. She said, you know, thank you for coming. Let's get him the help that he needs. We have one school psychologist for the entire county. And we can get him an appointment, but it will be in 1 month. And so we kind of felt like we did all that we could in that space and continued to interact with her, try and, you know, see if we could speed it up. And he didn't make it 1 month. He made it only 2 weeks. And he walked out of school one day and killed himself. And he never made it to that school psychologist appointment. And for me, that was really the point where I started to feel the rage of someone else's decision, policy decision that was specifically made that really became a life or death moment. There were 4 police officers, full-time police officers in my school. And there was also a police dog that I imagined got some money. And yet there was only one school psychologist for the entire county, the largest school system in all of Georgia. And this is, I think there's so many pieces of policy that affect our lives and affect the way that we operate. But there's this point where it really all those dots start to connect and we realize how it actually, these decisions, these numbers that were on a page and someone signed and it went to the next department and they signed it and it went to the next department, really starts to affect the livelihood of children. And that's kind of when my inner rage started, because I felt that if we had gone to a wealthy suburban school, or if we were at a private school, he may still have been with us. And the injustice of that really, really, really fueled me with rage. And I always wanted to be a teacher. I ended up going to college, actually up in Massachusetts, and moved back down south to be a teacher. And I kind of came with my radical academic text in my pocket, was ready to go. I learned my first huge lesson in how to not try to disrupt the system and how to crash and burn. I was so excited about my new role working with students. I'd been working in classrooms while I was in college, and so I was excited to be that full-time teacher up front and really give love to all of my students. And I put a bunch of posters up in my classroom. And I had a LGBTQ safe space poster, I had a feminism poster, I had a Black Lives Matter poster, all these things that kind of just, I wanted to be out front and screaming like, here's who I am, here's welcome, here are the people who are welcome in my classroom. You have a voice, you have agency here. And I flew at it alone. I thought this was a good idea. I made the posters, I drew them out myself, I tacked them up, and I didn't talk to anyone about it. I just did it. And the week before school started was parent-teacher conference week. And so all the parents were coming in, and it turned into this huge scandal where the administrators just covered up my door. They didn't let anyone inside my class. They didn't let anyone peek inside to see my posters because they didn't want any of the teachers starting pulling their kids out of my classroom. And what I realized through this is that I just decided that this was the best way forward. I thought this was the best idea. I had come from outside of the community. I'm not from Southern Louisiana. I've lived in cities all of my life. And I thought my way was going to be the best way. I thought if I was loud and proud, that would welcome people. It would make students feel comfortable. And what actually ended up happening is it was quite the opposite. Even the people that I was trying to speak to, the students of color in my classroom, were turned off because it was something that was new, and it was something that was confrontational, and it wasn't something that was introduced in the right way. And I ended up learning so much from the other teachers I was working with, my mentors, that you really have to learn how to organize by talking to community first and really understanding what the community already knows, what the community is already fighting for, and joining them instead of deciding to make it your fight, deciding to kind of take the arms and you be the person that does it. And I'm really grateful for this lesson. It's frankly kind of an embarrassing story for me to tell now because looking back, it seems so silly that that's how I operated. But I think it was really important for me to understand how to not do it. And I ended up, realizing that what I was doing was trying to have my students and family members and other teachers meet me where I was at, instead of me meeting everyone where they were at. And so that's to say that the community that I was working with, that was very mixed community, socioeconomically, racially, had a lot of things they were working through, but we're already working through it. And I needed to really take some time to listen, understand, and figure out how I can be a part of that process rather than just busting in with, my city attitude and my weird clothes and my nose piercing. So it was really humbling. It made me learn a lot. And I realized that I wanted to continue that journey of disrupting the system and moving us away from this autopilot that, frankly, if we leave the system on autopilot, it leaves our communities out. It actually throws our communities out the window. And we need people who are getting on board, who are actively making these changes. So this is how I wound up in organizing and outside of the classroom. I loved it. My first organizing role, I realized that organizing is just having those conversations, talking to communities, understanding what communities already know, and connecting those dots between community leaders, between people who have the power, people who should have the power, and really just being on your feet and having these conversations every single day. So as I continue to do my organizing work, as I'm talking to preschool teachers, as I'm talking to the newsletter writers in retirement homes, as I'm talking to nurses, as I'm talking to people who are really seeing and breathing and living the problems that we need to be solving with policy, I had this aha moment. I was working on Elizabeth Warren's campaign, and I was sitting in some hotel lobby waiting for a meeting, and I was watching NBC just passively, or MSNBC, just playing on the screen. And you know how they have those like slices of heads. And they're all analyst, analyst, analyst. And for the first time, they were talking about something that I felt like I knew something about, because they were talking about the presidential campaign, and I was working on one. And so I felt like I actually had some knowledge about the topics. And as I was watching them, I realized that they were just mediocre people with strong opinions. And it was this huge moment for me, because at so many points in my life, I had recognized this level of authority, and kind of equated it with intelligence, because they had power. So obviously they knew things, and that's how they got there. But so often it's just people who think they know things and are very willing to share their opinions and tell people their opinions. And it was personally a seismic shift for me, just to see that and say, these are just dudes who are saying things. And then in every single meeting moving forward, whether it was with other campaign staffers, whether it was with community, with elected officials especially, I started to, in the back of my mind, my head was like, these are just people who think things, but they've never talked to someone who experiences this. They've never worked in this space. They actually don't know what they're talking about. People have just let them get away with pretending that they know what they talk about for so long. And so I really tried to bring that mind frame, although flipped, to my organizing. The people that I'm talking to every day know exactly what they're talking about. Actually, we know so much more about what we're talking about than the people who are spouting their opinions on TV. The preschool teachers know exactly what the children and the parents are going through and what changes we need to see in our community in order for them to succeed. Same with the newsletter editor for the retirement home. She knows exactly what Linda on the second floor needs for her small business run out of her room. And she knows exactly what will make the community members suffer. And so as I kind of shattered this idea of people who know things and people with authority, that's what we brought to our organizing on Michelle Wu's campaign for mayor. So we worked to build up the community infrastructure in the campaign. And we tried our best to, instead of bringing on these like high-level experts who just told us their opinion of what they've seen on other campaigns or what they've seen works for policy, we decided to just listen to the people who it affected and really prioritize that. And so the advice that I give to future campaign managers always is buy a good pair of headphones, because your whole day should be spent on the phone. You should be asking people for opinions. You should be asking them what they think. What do they know? How are their parents doing? How are their kids doing? What are those actual very tangible things that are affecting their lives? And giving them the power to actually be a part of the policymaking, be a part of the organizing. So for a campaign, the way that we ended up modeling it is through a distributed organizing model. And what that means is, instead of recruiting a lot of volunteers and then giving them lists of phone numbers to call or lists of doors to knock on, we had little mini teams throughout the campaign. So our official count of neighborhoods in Boston is 23. I'm sure someone will fight me on that. But we had each neighborhood in Boston have its own neighborhood team. So we had the Back Bay neighborhood team. We had the Rosendale neighborhood team. We had the Hyde Park neighborhood team. And then we also had constituency teams. So that is a way that you can identify. We had LGBTQ for WU. We had Chinese Americans, Vietnamese Americans, Puerto Ricans for WU. We had artists for WU. And so we had so many different ways where people could be a part of their community. And what we decided to do in our organizing was let those groups decide how we should reach out to their communities, however we defined or drew out that community. And so they drafted out, and we drafted out together, strategies to reach out to the community, what businesses we need to make sure we go to, what messaging we should be saying in each community, and not just messaging, because it's not just about what we say to people, but really understanding what the priorities are for people in the community and how we make that, if it's not a part of our platform, how we then incorporate that into the platform. So then we had all these little mini communities, these little hubs that were feeding into our larger message, because they were feeding into what we were doing. It was all an aggregate of a bunch of small teams who were organizing our own communities. And I think that's really why we were able to have the success that we did on the campaign, because It was kind of terrifying to let go a lot of the control and give trust to people. But I think ultimately what we need to know is that we know what we need. We know what our communities need, and we need to allow ourselves to trust it. We should all pretend that we are MSNBC analysts who are just analysts, because we already have that knowledge. We're living it, our families live it, our communities live it. And so we know what we need to do, and we need to be able to just step into that authority and have that confidence. And what I realized is, because I spent so much time talking to community members, I myself started to gain confidence in my opinions and what I was saying, because I knew it wasn't just coming out of my brain. I knew that it was something that had built inside of me, because I had been talking to so many people who are community members, lived there for decades, and I was just working with them to get the message to different parts of the community. And so it wasn't just me making things up. Actually, maybe my second or third day on my job working with Michelle, I spent about an hour on the phone with Leverett, as he gave me a street by street breakdown of Chinatown and who's who and what's what, and really helped me understand what the community prioritizes, what the community needs, and how we can support that. So that being said, I am really, really proud of the work that we did together on the campaign, because I think it was so many people who were really building up their little slice of Boston and making sure that it was part of the campaign. And we wanted to model that over how we wanted City Hall to run. And so from my first few months in City Hall, and now my last few months watching from afar, I've been super proud to see, and I know Anchi's been doing great work in City Hall. I've been super proud to see that has continued. It's really, really important for the people in power to open the doors and not just get themselves there through community, but also continue to leave that door open, bring people in with them. And so I hope that all of you all, wherever you go with your advocacy work and the continued work that you do, continue to bring more people in, continue to ask questions, because none of us know everything. And the more people you talk to, the more power you gain, because we're just connecting with each other and we're continuing to grow that network.
What can press do, or what would you like press to do better? Obviously there's nuance. Obviously there's not just like the stupid hot takes of just like, well, Michelle Wu is doing the unpopular thing, or Michelle Wu is pushing a lot of buttons, but like what maybe the 3 top things that press really need to do better when they talk about Michelle and Boston and City Hall?
Yeah. Okay, I have 2. So, so I think one, I would love it if press, and this is not specific to Boston, I think this is everywhere, but press really took a look at how they're covering, especially women of color, the adjectives that they use, the words they use to describe the way they walk into a room, or the verbs that they use to describe how they talk to people. I think if you were to have this all printed out and shown to you in a class, it would be shocking to see the language that's used in 2022, because it's almost so obvious how many racial undertones there are. And this is not just Asian American women, but before we launched, we were talking to Ayanna Presley's comms team a lot, and they said, just be aware, the Boston Press Corps is really quite something, and you'll have to tell them 5 times over it's racist when you say this, and they'll continue to do it. So I would love it if press and media in general really looked inwardly on, not just, I think I've seen a lot of them doing audits on what their staff looks like, but not so much on how their staff is covering things. And so really did some critical thinking about that. I think second thing is similar to what I was saying before about just having a lot of people with opinions kind of out of nowhere. I would love it if I saw more community stories being covered by press. I think so much of that work is done by organizers to talk to communities, to organize communities and really hear kind of the very specific pain points. And I think press can do a really good job of, and they do sometimes do a really good job of showing very tangible human stories and catalyze people to make those changes. So not just necessarily calling up professors for opinions, but really, and not just finding like the one token school teacher that they ask for everything, but really asking normal people and telling those stories more.
Hi everyone, I'm an alum from last year. Yeah, so Mary Lou, I just wanted to ask, I really resonated with your words about, and your story about being a teacher and kind of realizing that you need to walk kind of slowly and build trust as a priority when you're trying to do organizing or improve something, work on something. And I feel that way too, and I've been finding that a lot in the last year or two. And so I was just curious, you know, how that lesson's been evolving for you and what that has been feeling like in a Boston context, you know, building that kind of trust and kind of sense of comfort and connection in Boston, knowing that you're kind of on the pulse of what people feel. And also I also resonated with what you said about knowing that you're not just like in your own head, you know, with the ideas that you're carrying. So yeah, I'd just love to hear a little about that. Thanks.
Yeah. So I think that a big lesson for me from that instance was understanding that I was seeing this from my perspective only. Kind of I was main character of the situation and not seeing it from the perspective of the people who I actually wanted to talk to. And I think it's been really helpful in Boston because I think one, I've been in the extreme end where, you know, I had extreme far right ideology that I was just trying to find a bridge to. And there's not a ton of that in Boston compared to being from Georgia and working in Louisiana, I will say. So there's already a few steps closer. And I think the main thing that I learned is that I need to be not even a part of this solution. I need to just create the table, you know, set the table or put people in the room, give them the prompts or the tools they need to understand each other, listen to each other, talk to each other. But no one likes to be told that they're wrong or told you should think about it this way. Even like in a normal argument with family members, like even if you're wrong and you realize it, like you don't want to admit it, you know, like if it's told to you in the wrong way. And so if you're creating a situation for people to be able to learn from each other, I find that it's less like no, you've been doing this wrong and this is how you should do it instead. And so it's a lot easier to get to a consensus. And then another tool that I found really useful is asking questions rather than pointing things out. So, oh, where did you get that idea? Or where did you hear that? Or how come you think that? And that allows people to get to the conclusion themselves instead of making them feel like they have to kind of battle back and dig their heels in further. And Boston definitely, I think, is the most politically active city I've been involved in or lived in. People are really like, it's like LA, but local politicians with celebrities. And so I think because of that, it's just decades ahead in terms of the ability to like the starting point is pretty high because people kind of know the basics of what's going on, and then you can kind of engage in discussion.
Thank you.
Great. I think we have time for one more before 6:30 because I want to get you out of here and respect your time. Shino actually has one in the chat. One of our alumni. I really like your attitude strategy to learn humbly from community because they are the experts on their own community. Yet I feel that especially in people in power and knowledge, academia think they know everything, and see knowledge as something you can obtain and achieve rather than lifelong learning. How can we change those people's attitudes and promote your kind of strategy to humbly listen to from the community itself?
I'm trying to learn to let go of what I do not have control over. And so I think one thing I will say is that for people that you can't change, people who you can't get to see outside of their ego, being nice to yourself, that it's not necessarily your job to fix everyone, especially the most egotistic ones. But I think separate from that, how can we get people to listen and learn? I think that specific human contact, having specific human stories, is the most powerful, because we're as humans, we're just attracted to individual stories and to hearing directly from people. And so finding sort of situations, I find that when you get to a battle where you're just sending each other articles back and forth, you've kind of already lost. But if you're able to send a video of someone who's explaining kind of why their situation is what it is, or if you're able to bring someone to a community event or bring someone to a speaker, like an actual human being, separate from yourself, because then you're separating it from an ego battle between you and the other person, and now it becomes you just presenting them with other opinions via other people's personal stories. It starts to open up our minds a lot. I know that happened with me in Louisiana because, I saw these kids like bust into my classroom screaming, build a wall, while I had students who were Mexican immigrants there who were freaking out. And like, I feel like I want to fight those kids' parents, but like you have to sit and show them a story or show them a direct connection with a human being to start to really understand, like, oh, like I also am connected with human beings. This is something that could, it starts to feel much more real when it's human to human contact rather than an idea of a person or an idea of a concept.
Hi, thank you so much. Are there any campaigns that you know of that would want some staff or temp help or volunteers?
There is currently a national shortage of campaign staff everywhere. People are begging for campaign staff, especially campaign managers. You do not need any prior experience to do anything on a campaign, really. None of it is rocket science. You're truly just talking to people all day. So there are quite a few in Massachusetts. I think there are some state-led races that are looking for campaign managers. And I know that the governor's race definitely is looking for volunteers. I can definitely connect with Leverett and figure out a way to get folks in the door. I would say the best way to get experience really feeling out a campaign is to just show up. And if you just show up, someone will shove some papers in your hand and give you something to do. So just for some fun background context, I first started working with Michelle as her finance director. I had never raised $1 in my life. I was very bad at it. And then Anchi joined the team and is probably the reason that you got that $3 link. And she did such a fantastic job. And I just like want to talk about how incredible Anchi is, does 5,000 things at once, and was a huge part of the campaign and was the first staff person. It was just me and Anchi for a few months. And then we eventually had 21 people at the end of the campaign. So just want to give her a shout out for all the money that we raised, even though Michelle and I made her job very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, there are a number of Team Woo folk on this Zoom. There's Anchi. Diego's at City Hall, Gary, Gary's pulling double duty as a seminar graduate and Team Woo. Did I see Huey? I thought I saw him on the Zoom. He was driving, and who else? Oh, Leighton. Leighton's on the Zoom. Hey, Leighton.
Hello.
And I think, yeah, that's it. I mean, and there are so many other supporters who have been on that as well. So thank you so much. I mean, unless somebody else has something to shout out real quick, we'll let Mary Lou get back to hopefully resting, relaxing, and healing, which, after such a long campaign, I mean, hopefully you take as long as you need to heal. And we're so grateful. She is I put this in the email, she's in demand nationally. And so we are so grateful that she took time to join us.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for engaging. I'm just really excited about this. Leverett sent me a lot of details about this class.
Yeah.
I'm excited about all of you and the work that you guys are doing and will continue to do. So thank you for doing that.
It's tough to follow something like that up, but I really do think that this class has so much to share, and it really so much to offer, given what you all do and what you've all shared and the ideas that you all came up with during this particular class. So I'd love to, in the past, I think I mentioned in the email, folks have shared what they hope to accomplish or hope to do with what they've learned, or some of the friends and colleagues and networks that they've built. And I know some folks during breakout rooms are saying, oh, I didn't know you were working on this. I have this resources. I'd love to work with you on that. And so different things and that you'd like to do, or just your general thoughts about the seminar.
Yes, I actually want to thank you in particular and all of the fellows over here. All the presenters were great, like the speakers, and but to be honest, I really liked the idea when we used to do the drills or the mock-up exercises during the breakout rooms. And that, like, I felt that it gave me the opportunity to be more cohesive with my fellows, like to know them more. And we used to do a lot of brainstorming. So the simulations were really great. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Leverett. You're amazing. Your energy was really great, and that really made this class all the more better. All the speakers were also awesome. I've learned so much from them and from all of my fellow classmates. Again, like Lena was saying, the breakout rooms were great. I've learned about so many issues I didn't know about. I mean, I did a lot of like checking up on different things after class that, my fellow classmates were working on. But mostly what was so great was, besides all the knowledge I learned, was getting re-energized. Like I was starting to feel a little like, the weight of the world, and feeling a little like, why am I doing all of this? And I feel re-energized and ready to keep working on the issues I'm working on. So thank you so much. This was such a great opportunity.
Great, thanks, Gina. Thanks so much for sharing. Alana, did you just raise your hand?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I think one thing that strikes me about this is that, I think we all came here to learn something, but I think what's really been emphasized for me and emphasized by you throughout is just like the community aspect of this, both in terms of us being a community of folks who care about this work and who might have overlapping interests and priorities, but also like in terms of the fact that we all have come in committed, but also wanting to know more, and also like having some questions about the process. And I think like related to that, I think we got a lot of really like concrete good information, but I think also what's been really valuable for me is like hearing about the like case studies and anecdotal experience. And I had to miss the lecture with Charles Glick, so I was just earlier today listening to it, and I forget now the term he was referring to, but he said, I was so glad I experienced this particular, I'm sure somebody else is going to remember what I'm talking about, but like this particular situation in which X happens to the bill, because then when that happened again, or like when I knew that was a possibility, that really sparked that for me. And I think, clearly we can't all have all of the experiences in terms of advocating and in terms of the legislature, but we can learn a lot from other people's experience. And I think that hearing just like the stories of all the different speakers and of you, Leverett, has been just really valuable in terms of both underlining some of the complexity and that it makes sense to have questions, and also the fact, and also just like learning from those specifics and being able to, if not have those experiences, at least be able to lean on the experiences of others so that we can build on that in our own work.
No, absolutely. Thanks, Lana. That's a wonderful point. It's we none of us know everything. Yeah, we none of us can operate in a vacuum. We all have different experiences, different areas of knowledge, and different areas of expertise. And the more that we can share, and more that we can lean on each other and call on each other, the better.
I'm so grateful for this space, and Leverett, for you. I echo what Gina said about your energy. I know how much work it takes to put together something like this and have it run smoothly. And I'm just really impressed each time with how thoughtful you are, how considerate, and making sure that everything is lining up and we are prepared for what's coming that night. So I'm just grateful for you and your wisdom, Leverett. And the rest of the group, I feel like I've learned so much from the speakers as well as the other participants. And one thing that I really love about this experience is that it feels like the Commonwealth Seminar is living your values by sharing stories and showing that we're not just going to be didactic. You know, there's some slides and some data that was really helpful, and there were stories from people's lived experience, and that being valued, and not just saying we value that and that that's important, but then living it by giving it time and space was really powerful for me. So it was a beautiful blend of you know, information, knowledge, and, you know, living, you know, hearing people's past and their journeys and being able to, you know, sort of experience that with them. So I'm grateful for this time and all the work that was done to put this together. And I'm not announcing anything.
Not yet. Not yet.
To all my Quincy people who keep asking.
Not yet, but we'll be waiting.
You have really added joy to my life. I really, really thank you so much, Leverett. I really don't laugh. I'm super, super serious, and this has really been this has been a pleasant surprise to be a part of this group. I second everything that my classmates have shared, but Lena especially. I really like the breakout groups the most. And even to the intro that was playing while everyone was coming to join class, I was listening to that while I'm working because I'm still at work. And one of the previous students said re-engage, like this helped her to re-engage. And that literally is the right word for me. It's I've been very, very super engaged in the past, and to our speaker's point, this work can be triggering, this work can be traumatizing, this work takes a lot out of you, and you need time to recover. And I feel as if this space right here just has given us some recovery time, and is also given us an outlet outside of the same faces that we see doing the work, that we're really a web of people doing, you know, these things in these spaces, and we can really feel lonely and working against a grain in that way. So I'm really, really, really thankful, even for Diego and his shepherding last week.
Yeah.
I appreciate everyone here. So thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of it.
And you know, somebody that has been with us every single week also that I want to thank is Diego. You know, Diego brought so much, his expertise, sort of. Diego's got this sort of calm demeanor as well. He's like a complete opposite of me in terms of what he brings to the table. It's like, and you know, so he's a very understatedly has all of this knowledge and all of this, like I mentioned, this expertise that he's willing to offer and share. And you know, and it's not easy because I know you've got a newborn, and you know, guys were battling COVID as well, and so you know, thank you for you know what you bring to the table. You know, Diego was our partner when he was at Metropolitan Area Planning Council, and you know, he recently joined, you know, Mayor Wu's team, but you know, he's maintained his commitment to the seminar. So thank you so much, Diego. Do you want to say anything? You want to add anything before we move on?
Yeah, no, thanks, Leverett. And no, I appreciate the kind words. And like I mentioned before, like I did a seminar back in 2015, and it definitely did open the doors of government to me, and also made me, it also made me just realize like I did want to be in government, and I hope at the very least this seminar has, like Joel has said, has made you all more confident in interacting with legislators and kind of demystified the kind of scariness that government sometimes may have. I wish we all did this in person, and I look forward to hopefully meeting you all in person, hopefully very soon. And I'm happy to drop my personal email as well in case any of you guys want to reach out. I'm always happy to grab coffee with any seminar alum. Just do networking, whether it be for work or personal reasons. You know, I want to be a resource the same way so many other seminar alum were resources to me. So I hope you enjoyed it, and please stay in touch. And I will say, Leverett won't thank himself, but I think we all can appreciate and thank Leverett for everything he's brought to the seminar. I know, you know, if the seminar was run by somebody else that wasn't Leverett and high spirited on Wednesdays, it might be a different vibe. And I just know, like, I always chuckle. I've heard Leverett present and talk a lot on different classes, and I always just find everything he says really funny and humbling and sincere. So I just wanted to make sure that on behalf of the class, we thank you, Lever, too, for everything you put into the seminar.
Oh, thanks, Diego. Thanks so much. Good thing we're on Zoom because you can't see me blushing or anything like that. So thank you, thanks for that. I do appreciate it. Thank you all. You know, I really do. Again, I can't emphasize enough how much this class, you know, meant to me personally, and I really did enjoy this immensely, and I really hope that you found it a worthwhile use of your time and on a Wednesday night. So